So for all microservices, including admin service, manager, seller, customer, and delivery. Admin service, manager, seller. For each service, I want to maintain properties via config server. Okay, as per our architecture, that is what we thought. So before starting development, whatever properties you want, you can configure them in your cloud config project. Use cloud config server and configure them so that your properties are centralized. You can easily manage them. Team can easily able to manage them, deliver. Whenever you want to change the properties, or if you want to control your properties, you will be having single central console. So to maintain the properties of your application, which properties every application might need: port numbers, server configurations, right, database configurations, JPA configurations, transaction related information, okay, batch informations, okay. So all configurations, instead of having in your local in the sense within your application, instead of having them in application, you can maintain all the properties from Git or Bitbucket, okay, inside your Bitbucket or inside your Git repo. You can create a repo. Under that repo, you can keep your properties file, okay, like application dot properties or YML or YAML file. So there you can maintain properties of your applications. Here you can maintain. But each application will not only run in your local, okay. During development, I pulled this code from so and so branch. This code I have pulled from my Git branches only. In Git I have this code base. If you consider this is Git, in this Git repository, I have multiple projects. For each project, I'll be having multiple modules. Consider admin service project. If you have there, by default, whenever you create repository, right, in Git main repo, it will create. From main, we will be cutting one branch like prod to UAT to SIT to development to your feature branch you can create. We did this exercise already. So consider this is your local machine, right? If you consider this is your local machine, I'm talking about this properties maintenance, okay? If all teams are working in their locals machines, okay, local machines. Usually we work on our VDI machines or our local machines, so that we will use Eclipse and database softwares. We develop this application, okay. So once application development is done in this feature, we shift it to development server. Means your code will be moved to dev server. We will be maintaining development server, SIT server, different machines altogether, UAT server, prod. In all these environments also I need to run my application. In local I'll use my Eclipse or STS, there I will run, or your IntelliJ or your Eclipse. There you will be running your code if it is your local machine. Okay. Once your code is moved to feature to dev branch, once I move my code to feature, once after merge request, right, my code will be moved to dev branch. Okay, when I raise MR merge request, that will be approved. So your code will be there in dev. Same code, whatever code I developed here, right? Same code. All the files will be moved here. All the files will be moved here. The same files I will be moving into dev. Now, if I use some pipelines will do what? They will run. They will deploy your code based on your pipeline configurations on dev server. If your code is shifting from dev branch, the triggers will run it on dev server. Like that, the pipeline configuration will be done. So once you promote this to SIT, your code will be deployed into SIT server. So once system integration testing also done with your testing team, SIT also done, I'll be promoting it to UAT. So your code will be deployed for user acceptance testing. So customer, if he say fine, I tested it, so as expected code is there, you will be promoting it to prod. So your pipelines will be triggered on prod server. But same code only when I shifted to same code only when I shifted to different servers. Same code only when I shifted to different servers. Each server I may have different database configuration. For dev you may have 1 DB, one different DB set you might have here, and for SIT you might have one more DB. Same database we will not use for you know all environments. Same code only should choose different databases. For dev, I have one separate database, different DB URL, username, passwords. SIT database is different, UAT database is different, prod database is different. How your application will understand it need to connect so and so database? Where do you configure all that properties? Means not only your local configurations, all environment configurations we can do within one YML file or properties file. So here we configure all our properties. Which properties? Anything. Inside this Git project under application properties file or YML file, here we will be maintaining all environments. Means your local properties, for local your DB configurations, JPA configurations, port numbers, if it is connecting with any Kafka kind of stuff, Kafka connection details, Kafka connection properties. Again, for each environment, we will have this setup, different database configurations, different JPA properties. For dev, you may have different set of properties. For for basically, once you move it to dev, right? Let's say if you have dev server, your code will be deployed into dev. Okay, your code will be deployed into dev, and dev will be tested. So in dev, you might have the code which is required to release or not to release. Dev everybody will use. Okay, so there are 100 stories are going on currently. So everybody will move their code to dev and they will be testing. In case if you don't want send this jar file, whichever you run, okay. Generally, once after local development, we move only code, not the jar. Code only will move here. Even code only we shift from here to your dev. Code we will shift, not jars. So during deployment, the Jenkins here pipeline, CI/CD pipeline will do what? It will prepare jars. When CI/CD you will execute, right, from your code it will generate jar file here. Okay. So the same jar file we will not use for testing, SIT. Whatever code you shift right, your feature only develop. I mean done. Other developers also. Let's say here we are almost 14 members. All 14 members are working on different features. So I have not completed code here from other developers. Only my code is completed. So that code I move to dev. If I am confident, my code only I can shift to SIT and I can deploy here. Once SIT jar also deployed and tested properly from CI/CD, okay. So if your pipeline only will create your jar files and deploy into your servers. Okay. So in this pipeline setup, we will configure environment variables during jar run. Right, during jar command running, we pass runtime arguments. Even in your local also, right? If you want to pick up local properties, once this admin application development is done, while before running your admin service, right? How you need to run? You will be right clicking here your application and configure your properties, run configurations. Under run configurations, you need to pass VM arguments. You need to pass VM arguments here. So here, as you see, right, string dot active dot profile, you should be configuring here like dev or local. This you need to configure. Okay, not much, but nowadays, expecting everything from everybody. But usually your DevOps team will be taken care. Creating this resources CI/CD setup. So far, I didn't see that a task is assigned to developers. But if you are skilled everywhere, right, you will be architect. You can guide the DevOps team also, not only dev team, right? You can take control over complete application. But usually we will be having DevOps teams. I don't know in future if everybody gets skills. This part also we can do. Maybe configuration stuff, right? Yeah, particular environment, correct. So once this SIT jar also done, your code will be promoted to UAT. So here also you can run a jar. It's up to you how you want to configure your application. Do you want to rebuild every time? CI/CD want to rebuild a jar file? Yes, you can rebuild it and you can promote it here. Once you move code here again for prod also CI/CD wants to build a jar, you can do it. So every time CI/CD based on your environment code, it will prepare jar file and run it on your server. It will do the Maven build everything. Every time it will do your Maven build. In case if you feel that Maven build why I need to do every time, at least after SIT I want to promote to jar files only, you can do that as well. So that CI/CD will not do Maven. Up to here, let's say for dev and SIT you can do Maven builds. Thereafter I want to promote it. Promotion also we will do sometimes. Just we promote to jar file instead of doing rebuild every time. Okay. So the promotion also fine. It's all depends on the code which you have. If you consider that SIT code only I want to move to UAT to prod, then you can promote it. Just code promotions will help. Or else every time you do new build. Okay. So there is no first and foremost rule that SIT only you need to move to UAT only you need to move to prod. Everywhere you can do Maven build and deploy it. Usually, why we'll avoid that Maven build and all is doing the entire checking code quality up to here that we can do for in UAT and prod. Let's say CI/CD if it is doing all the things, code scanning, code quality checking, making buildings, deploying, everything. If it is taking here, this might take so much time here to do that build, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or 40 minutes, or 1 hour to do your build. If you think that is taking large time during deployment time, you may do directly promote your jar file. After SIT, right, using this Jenkins, you can do simple promotions. Promotion steps they provide. So SIT to UAT, you can directly promote. What it will do directly, this jar file, whichever you used for SIT, right, it will use for UAT also. Same UAT jar file it will use for production also. So that all the remaining steps will be skipped during your deployment. Okay. So every time once after jar file, we got it right. Once we got the jar file, even in your local also, if you want to run your application, you need to use this jar command. Docker is for containerization, containers. Single server only I have, single machine only VM. There itself, in the single VM itself, okay, all these are, you dev, SIT, UAT, prod, all these are part of single machine only. Still, I want to virtually divide that machine into multiple servers. Docker can do that. No, not mandatory. Don't say that. Yeah. Don't go much in depth into CI/CD Dockers. You say I'm pure microservice developer. I know how the CI/CDs are configuring and doing the deployment. If Docker is mandate, then you say you need to prepare. Yeah. So use this jar command to run. Simple jar hyphen, not this. Yeah, Java hyphen jar, and you give your jar file name, admin jar, and you can pass your arguments. Which arguments? Like runtime arguments, you need to pass hyphen hyphen spring dot active dot profile. If you are running manually, you need to set this profile, local or dev or prod. While doing it through Jenkins, in Jenkins you need to configure this profile. Jenkins will ask which profile you want to pick. So what this profile will decide means, while running your jar file, it will decide which properties need to pick here. In your cloud configuration project, you have properties. You have different local properties, SIT properties, different set you have for every environment, different configurations you have. Same configurations we never use, same database we never use. Local database is different, testing is different, UAT is different, prod is different. So each profile properties you will be maintaining here during before run your jar file, you need to tell your profile also, because this admin jar file is capable to pick up any properties from here. So based on your mention here, right, it will pick up that particular set of properties only. So what this Jenkins will do, in local you do this stuff, but in dev, in the CI/CD pipeline itself, we configure that profile. So which runtime arguments you want to pass, that you will be passing from CI/CD Jenkins configuration. So that while after preparing this jar file, CI/CD only will run your Java command also. This Java run command, it will go to your Linux, it will connect with your Linux machine, right? And it will straight away go there and it will run this command and it will start your application. Once starting your application, it will fetch your logs also. It will, as a written, it will fetch your log, and from CI/CD you can see the log also, how your application is deployed and what is the log during running your Java code, so that you can see finally it went success or failed also. Even it also will shows you, right? Jenkins will show whether your build went success or failed. So this many environment properties you can maintain in one single project. Okay. So how this admin service will pick up these properties? You need one more microservice. You need one more microservice. Okay. So run this microservice somewhere in your common repository. You need one more Linux machine, or in same Linux machine. You need to run one more service, config server. Config server you will be running there. Maybe use one more different machine, different environment. There your project will be running. This project will pick up these properties, and from this project your microservices will pick up the properties. Basically, whenever you run this command, right, it will ask the config server, give dev properties, local properties, or SIT properties everywhere. Your production also will be pointed to this, UAT will be pointed to this, SIT will be pointed to this. All your environments will take help of config server. When you run jar command with profile, that profile properties only it will ask, so that properties will be given to your application. Otherwise, if you are maintaining it them in locally, it is very difficult to maintain all the properties of all the applications, not only single application. One single application will maintain all your microservices properties, that to all your environments. Single point of contact. If something need to change, directly I'll be going into config properties file. Here I'll do the changes. So these changes will be, when I restart, that changes will be picked up here in your local or dev or SIT, UAT or prod. Let's say production properties need to change. I got one new change in production. In production, I need to, I need to change some properties. Port number I want to change. One port we think that that is unsecured, not secured port. So that port configurations I need to change. Instead, I go and doing changes here. What I can do, I can directly go to prod properties, not copied here, right? So production properties you can have here. So that prod properties you can change directly. You can change them directly here, so that that will be reflected into your application from here. The service you need to restart. No. Config server you need not to restart. Config server always listens your changes. Just to restart your production server. Okay, automatic listeners better avoid here. Otherwise, without downtime, immediately it will restart. Maybe that is not good. Okay, so you go to your production CI/CD, take green zone and restart it, so that everyone will be notified that your server is getting restarted. They will stop using it. Okay, so here we go to the CI/CD configuration. Usually we need not to open CI/CD. CI/CD triggers will be available within your repo only, right? They will give one trigger file. On that trigger file, whenever you do changes, right? Simple changes, whenever you do commit it, whenever you do changes on your trigger file, like how we did changes in the repository properties file, right? Similarly, they provide YML or properties file. When you do changes on that properties or YML file and commit it, immediately CI/CD will listen. Immediately CI/CD will listen, and it will understand, okay, this guy want to restart the server. Immediately it will restart. Okay. That is the, in a traditional way, we do deployment and we maintain configurations. Okay. So in yesterday's application, I did maintain all the properties here. Okay. You can have these properties in your cloud config server. Create a cloud config server. From there you can pull them. Create a repo. GitHub. So, so I'll be creating one repository here, config server, create it. Just create one file, application properties. So here you can maintain all your environment variables here. Do you remember how we configured it? Which repository we used yesterday? Cloud config, yeah? Not this one. Okay, this is how you can put. This is way with configuration properties. Okay, with the dot properties file. Same file you can convert it into. So here dev I have, sit I have. Let me keep these properties there. Port numbers. Hopefully you can, even your config server URL also you can configure there. So from there it will point out here. You can keep them here. So this is for development, and when you shift it to SIT, you can have SIT properties here. For timing, I'll be keeping same properties. Comment it. Okay. So I can use this project in my config server. So your config server is picking up all the properties from here. Which properties? Okay. Let me rename it. Application dot properties. Can't I rename it? Hmm. Application properties. Cool. This is changed. Now all these properties will be picked up there. Your dev, SIT, all environments it will read. Okay. So when you want to pick up these properties, in your local, within your application, right? Now in this application, I don't need all these properties. I don't need all these properties here. Just you need to code Spring Active Profile here. Spring dot active dot profile, active dot profile, profile name. So if you want to pick dev properties, put this here. Either you can hard code it or You can enter as a runtime argument also. String dot profile active or active profile. Profile active dev. So it will pick up dev properties only. From where it will pick up dev properties? From your cloud config server. But how it will talk to cloud config server? I should configure it. So this is wrong configuration. Yeah, not wrong configuration. At least you need to load your config server. So this is local configuration. You should tell to your application which is your cloud config server. So I need to tell here this is my cloud config server. So before starting your application, you need to start config server. Start it. Just a minute, yes. Okay. Yeah. So config server is started under port 888. Now if I start this app, yeah. See all your Hibernate code, connection pool logics, everything it is executing. So your server also started. Your server is starting on 9090. When I try to create a record here, when I try to create a record here, by a post method, okay, 9090, your URL and data also you need to pass. So for that, if I use this request to body for post to test my method, this is the request body that I should pass from body. Give the request. No ID required. Automatically it generates. Already yesterday we created it, right? So let's create a new record. Okay. So here this URL is your controller URL. Go to your REST API/managers. Okay, API/managers. Run it. Your code is executed and response to 01 you got here, and the ID it is created too. So you can check out your table here. Rajesh record has been created. Okay. So this record got created here, but I did not maintain any properties in my application. So like a magic, this application brought property from this server. That server connected to your central repository, central configurations repository. That repository you can connect with any profile. For example, for SIT you have a different database. Okay, admin schema for SIT. Okay, here I'm doing a change. Carefully look into it. Look into it. Okay, one more new schema I'll add. Admin schema SIT. So let me create one more schema here. Create a database admin schema. So admin schema is available. Use admin schema. The table also not creating it. I'm not creating any table. Now when I change my profile here, change profile from dev to SIT and save it. Okay, now it is reloading your application. Yeah, it is connected with new database, hopefully. Now if I try to run this, go and check table. Is there any table created? Select the star from manager. Yes, one empty table created already. Your DDL created one empty table. ID, address, country code, date, division, email, blah blah blah. All the parameters has been created here. Now, if I try to insert the same Rajesh record, it given ID one. Why so? Because new schema is not having any table. Now in this new schema also record got inserted. You guys can see, right? So how it picked up my properties which are there in the Git directly, and that too I did changes here in this SIT. How it recognized this SIT properties only? Because you are loading it via cloud config server, and here you are telling to your cloud config server which properties you want via profile. This is what profiles concept, which is very important. This one will decide which properties it is picking up to run your application. Okay, usually in CI/CD this is the command that it will run. CI/CD will run this kind of command, and this is the property that you can give as a runtime argument. SIT, dev, prod, UAT, all such configurations. Okay, yeah, you guys asked me to write code from the scratch, right? That we do. Okay, from next session I'll be doing the complete end-to-end code. Okay, before that, right, Monday session we will see little bit Git and Maven usage, then we will proceed. Okay, so today